I think everything is trying to condition people to kind of take that safe, settled, stable option, but as a consequence of that, give up their true dreams. And, I have this idea that you have to let everybody else's dreams crumble around you in order to pursue your own. And I think that until you let those other people's dreams for you crumble, it's really hard to go out and create your own path. The less I think about my own happiness, the happier I become. When you start having your North Star as happiness, I think you can chase the wrong things for the wrong reasons. Brand building is a slow exercise. And it's the reason why at the top, there are so few people with good brands, because so few are willing to put in the reps, the years. And I think that that's why brand is so valuable. Because if it was so easy to get and you could just build brand overnight, it wouldn't have any value.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a quick note from me to say thank you so much for choosing to tune in to watch today's episode. I've checked the stats recently and I was blown away to see that 93.6% of you who choose to tune in and watch these videos aren't already subscribed to the channel. Now, if you're watching these videos because you're looking to level up in your life and make positive changes, it starts by changing your environment and what you consume. So make sure that you're subscribed to this channel so that you're consuming some incredible, inspirational, and empowering content and stories that will help you make positive changes in your life. Enjoy today's episode and stay visionary.
Welcome back to the show, guys. My guest today is the founder of Triangle, a brand building marketing agency specific to 7- and 8-figure businesses. Before starting Triangle, he's worked with the likes of KPMG and directly with Steven Bartlett on the Diary of a CEO team. He's an international speaker and the author of Breaking Free. On top of working with businesses through Triangle, he's also the founder of Social Club, which is a social media community that looks after 328 million followers collectively. And he's working directly with LinkedIn on the content creator management program to help bring new features to the platform. Matt Swain, welcome to the show.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's a ton in the introduction of, your wealth of experience and what you're able to do. Let's start off this conversation with what someone listening to this needs to know about you that makes you the person you are today.
Okay. Big question to start. For me, I think that I was trying to live the life that everybody told me I should live. I had the nice stable job in the city, the nice car, everything that society told me I should strive towards. And I've kind of realized the more I've followed my own path and tried to carve out what matters to me, the more I've kind of tried to resist the pressures that are put on me, the happier, more fulfilled, healthier version I've become. And so I guess that's what I'm often trying to do. I'm trying to carve my own path, whatever that looks like to me now. And I'm trying to be really intentional about it. But I think that it's taken a real journey to get to that point.
You say it's the life that you were living was the life that was kind of designed for you by someone else. Where did that design come from? Where did those instructions come from that were saying this is how you need to live life? Who was the facilitator of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because for me, I felt it very early on, even at like 14, 15, 16, I really felt the pressure to get the grades at school, to have the job, to earn the money. A part of it was definitely internal in lots of ways. Like I wanted and still want to achieve my potential. And that's definitely been like a driver, within. But I think it's all of the subtleties, just the way you look, like the advertising, like I think everything is trying to condition people to kind of take that safe, settled, stable option. But as a consequence of that, give up their true dreams. And, I have this idea that you have to let everybody else's dreams crumble around you in order to pursue your own. And I think that until you let those other people's dreams for you crumble, it's really hard to go out and create your own path.
Okay, I love that you've said that because the idea of fulfilling a dream is something that I think every single one of the people listening to this podcast is striving towards. At what point do you become able to differentiate between what's your true dream and what is the dream that was given to you by society or parents or teachers or anyone else external?
Yeah, I mean, tough question. I think it's for me, it's all around coming down. It always comes down to intention. And like the more intentional you are, the easier it is to kind of follow that path. But I think it's something that you have to kind of feel out. Like I think you have to try things, you have to make mistakes, you have to follow everyone else's dreams, and eventually you're given the signs to pursue your own, whatever those signs may be.
Let's talk about some of those signs. So, what was the dream path that you were following
Sure.
that you thought was the right thing to do? And what was the sign or signs that you came across that shifted your perspective onto a different dream that you are now following the path of?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I got a job working at KPMG in the city, kind of finance job. At the time, it was great. They sponsored me to go to Durham Uni and study, and I got to work alongside it. And so, in many ways, it was great. But it was a few years in where I started to go like, there must be more to life than what I'm doing right now. Like beyond the spreadsheets, beyond the tough bosses, beyond all of that, there had to be a better life. And I just believe that really deep down. And I think I've proved it true for myself as well.
There was a point in your journey where you actually traveled to India, and you talk about this in your book as well.
Mm.
And from what I gathered from what you'd written in your book, it was quite a profound trip, even though it was quite early on in your journey. What did traveling to India actually do for you, and how did that help you in making the decisions that you've made to ultimately leave your job?
Yeah, I mean, India is just one of those crazy places, like especially like I'd done a fair bit of traveling, but I hadn't been anywhere quite like India. And yeah, I can remember like arriving at 4 a.m. in the morning and it's just, the streets are pretty quiet, but there's still a fair bit going on. But you're kind of jet lagged and you're super tired. It's like 4 a.m. You've been traveling all day. I can remember getting to the hotel room and just kind of crashing there. And then the next morning at like, 8 a.m., kind of going downstairs in this kind of little kind of like rundown hotel that we were staying at right in the city of right at the center of Delhi, and you just walk onto the street and your senses are just flooded. I don't know, it's just such a vivid moment that I'm left with from that experience.
And how did that experience impact you when it came to essentially breaking away from the path that you were on, the corporate job, this idea of needing to be a high flyer within the corporate world and climbing that corporate ladder?
Sure. I think it was like seeing something else, seeing a different perspective. And I think that a lot of us can get quite caught up in our day-to-day activities, like what we're doing, the environments we're in, the people we're seeing. And sometimes it takes for you to go somewhere completely different to kind of feel that shift. And you just realize there are other possibilities. There's reason why I love travel so much is because you get to go to all of these places and see there are thousands of different paths that you could follow. And like kind of for me growing up with like good grades at school, it felt like there was just one path for me to follow. And then I kind of realized, oh wow, there's all these other options there. Also in India, like, the people there don't have as much, but like they are so happy. There's such a vibrancy and energy that's there. And for me, I felt like I'd been tricked. Like everybody had said, like, climb the ladder, then you'll be happy. Get the nice car, then you'll be happy. Whereas in India, like that kind of doesn't exist, and yet they are happy. They had what I wanted, but they didn't have to chase or climb or conquer to get there. Like I had kind of thought or believed I needed to.
Interesting. We started off on quite a couple of deep questions anyway, and I'm just going to get even deeper right from the beginning because I feel like you're up for it. So, what you saw in terms of people maybe having less materialistically, but ultimately behaving in a happier emotion all round, obviously had an impact on you. How do you define happiness now?
It's a good question. I don't think about it as much as I did. I think I was trying to be happy in lots of ways. Like it almost preoccupied my mind. I kind of try, and now my focus is just like adding value and kind of doing good into the world. And for me, that makes me happy. And I'm not trying to like please myself all the time, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to achieve things for me. I'm trying to like achieve things for something greater. I guess it's taken time to get to that, but yeah, I don't know. I think that happiness can be a bit of a kind of fallacy for people. I think that they can try too hard to obtain it, and I think it's one of those things that you can't ever obtain. It's kind of background noise, if that makes sense. It's just there. It's not you're not meant to kind of reach out and be able to touch it. It's not something that you can have or own. It's just this kind of thing that just surrounds you and is there in the background.
I've never heard anyone say that. That is a super interesting perspective. So where did you get that perspective from, where it's this background noise that you don't really get to touch, keep, or own, and it's just kind of there, I guess, something that you experience every now and then? Where did that perspective come from?
I mean, I like a lot of Alex Hormozy,
Okay.
and Alex Hormozy has this idea, and I've listened to a lot of stuff, right? Like I've listened to a lot of stuff. I've thought about it a lot, and it's one of those things that I do keep coming back to, where the less I think about my own happiness, the happier I become, if that makes sense. For me, it's about like progress and kind of moving forwards. And I think that if like the byproduct is happiness and contentment, I think that if that becomes your sole focus, I think you can then chase all the wrong things. When you start having your North Star as happiness, I think you can chase the wrong things for the wrong reasons. I think when you chase something bigger, you chase something like progress, it becomes less about getting happiness and more about like everything that happens on the journey, really.
That quote I'm most likely going to use on the thumbnail for this video, which is, the less you care about your happiness, the happier you seem to become. I think that's genius.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your career shift, okay? Because you were focused on this goal of achieving corporate success, and KPMG was the vehicle that you were in to help you get there. That was a role in finance, and you've moved from finance into marketing. And I believe that was from working in the corporate environment there to working with the Diary of a CEO team. How did you, even forgetting the companies that you were working with, how did you make the move from finance to marketing?
Sure. I mean, I'd been doing it by myself for a while. So I was posting stuff online, and it's one of these like core beliefs or things that have been proven through my life, where the more I've posted online, just amazing things happen. And so I'm kind of reinforced and incentivized to just like keep posting online, because I'm never sure what's going to happen, but I know it's always going to be something good. And I guess I just had this sixth sense that was true. Even on day one, when I first started posting, I was like, if I just post online, something cool will happen. One of the earlier things to happen in my kind of online journey was Steve reaching out to me and hiring me directly into the team from a DM. And I think it just goes to show like just how powerful your online presence is. You never know who's watching, all of that kind of general stuff. And it's just been this belief and this thing that's happened over and over and over again. The more stuff I put online, the cooler and cooler stuff happens.
What are some of the, obviously, Steven Bartlett reaching out to you to hire you directly was one thing. What else has happened as a result of you posting online?
Yeah, I mean, getting invited to speak internationally, I find that wild, being like a 25-year-old international speaker. Was invited to judge an awards ceremony overseas. They kind of fly you over, like chauffeur-driven car, like, look after you really well, and then you go on and present awards. What else has happened? And then just like the clients that you can win as well, and how you can gain access to the most incredible kind of clients. Like I can't mention all of them, but like, Wim Hof's been one of my clients. They reached out through Instagram DMs. I don't even have a big following on Instagram. There's another name with like 9 million followers on Instagram, even more well known, that I can't mention. But like there are so many amazing things that happen, honestly, almost every day, and I'm always reminded of the power of socials and content and brand.
Okay, so as we were talking about before we started this the recording, I want to make this as practical as possible for everyone listening to gain as much value as possible. Someone listening to this right now who is thinking about wanting to post content online, and they're feeling completely lost on what to even start with, what would your advice be to that person to get them to start being active on social media that could end up leading to some of these amazing things that have happened similar to yourself?
Yeah, I think it comes back to intention. Like you have to know what you're on socials for. And I think a lot of people end up in trouble because they post aimlessly. There's no real goal. And so of course, after 2 weeks, it becomes draining, right? Whereas if you have a clear intention around what you're actually trying to achieve, then content is just one part of the process of going along that journey. Like another, for me, just as important part of brand and content is reaching out and conversation starting and messages as well. Like it's great to have a great brand and great content, and so many amazing people will reach out to you and have, you know, great things happen to you from that. But you also have to be proactive and start working towards that opportunity, those opportunities that you are looking to do as well. And when you have both together, that's where we find, especially with clients, you get this incredible blend of really high quality, industry leading content with messages and starting conversations and kind of being proactive. You get like exponential type results.
So because you've just reminded me of something that you said earlier, which was that you started getting signs, or you might get a sign around what you're meant to be doing, right? And obviously you had the sign around creating your own agency. What was that sign for you? How did that come about for you? And second part to that question, what should someone be looking out for as a sign, or how can they look out for those signs to get more clarity on their direction?
Sure. I think the signs can come from like a travel trip or a conversation with a friend or a book, for example. Like it could come from anything where you feel this kind of jolt or this kind of like shift within. I think that's what you're looking for. But in terms of the agency, like I had a bunch of consulting and advisory type gigs. I had a bunch of kind of one-off clients that I was doing social media bits for. And everyone kept coming up to me and just saying like, how do you do your LinkedIn? Like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? How do you get it to work? Could you do it for me? And so really it was just like enough people saying like, okay, how do you do it? And I was like, okay, well, maybe we should kind of pivot and move towards this direction. And so then we've pivoted into pretty much like a LinkedIn branding agency for CEOs and founders. And then even as we've kind of gone on that path, we're now finding a real sweet spot with kind of, 7 and 8 figure founders, CEOs of kind of 100-person organizations, mid-market enterprise deals. And so again, we're kind of shifting into more of a, really tailored service for that specific business. And so it continues to evolve, even today.
What makes a powerful brand in the marketplace?
Like a brand is there to drive an outcome, and you have to move towards an outcome with your brand. And the way that we view it is each piece of content is a stepping stone towards that outcome. And unless you're moving through the stepping stones, unless you're moving closer towards that outcome that you're trying to achieve, it's pointless.
What are some of the examples that you've experienced where brands have been kind of posting content, trying to get engagement up, but it's not been fruitful? And what can people listening to this avoid, knowing your experience, so that they don't go through the same path?
Sure. I mean, firstly, chasing engagement is is always going to be tricky. The way that I would view it is, how do I create better quality content? How do I add more value into the world? How do I create more, interest in posts? And the byproduct is followers and engagement. And so the first is that like mindset reframe, because trying to hack the algorithm or trying to, kind of create some kind of magic dust is just it's a hard way to go. The more value and the better your posts are and the better quality, that's easier to measure and is in your hands. So that would be my first thing. What was the second bit?
So what could people listening, what could they do to avoid going down the same route?
Yeah, and then so a lot of people are just chasing engagement, where what you really have to think about is chasing the right engagement. And so like all of our conversations internally with the team and with clients is all about how do we get more of our target ICP, our target persona, that target customer profile that we're trying to reach. How do we get more of them to engage with each of our clients' content?
So for the people listening, who don't know what ICP is, what's ICP?
So yeah, just like your ideal, like if whatever the outcome is that you're looking to drive, it is the decision maker behind that outcome. So if you're trying to get a job, then the decision maker is a HR manager in that company. If you're trying to get on stage, then it's a speaker conference manager, someone like that. If you're trying to sign a client, then it's the person that's going to, sign off and have the authority in the deal to sign off. So it really depends on the outcome that you're looking to drive, but it's that number one decision maker that you need to, build trust and authority and credibility with in order to get that end outcome.
So many things that I want to kind of unpack your mind around here about this stuff. So what does someone need to research or look into to make sure that they are creating content that provides that trust, provides that authority to the marketplace? How do they not, how do they avoid the trap of thinking that they're doing the right thing, but they're maybe just following either things that they've seen or things that are on trend, which aren't really resonant to their brand or not really adding value?
I mean, that's the hardest thing, is how do you not get distracted from all of the noise and all of the gurus and all of your friends and peers and the algorithm itself that will try and pull you away from that goal.
The algorithm gods.
Yeah, like the more that you listen to those, the less you pursue your target. And so you have to get super focused on and push away all of those other factors. And then you just have to really get to know them, jump on calls with them, kind of find out what they're doing at the weekends. Like the more you know your target that you're trying to reach, and this is like one of the things that we have to do in the agency, is we have to go thoroughly research our client's target profile. We'll review their sales calls. We'll go and produce like really detailed analysis and documents around everything that they're doing. And the more that we understand the target profile that they're trying to reach, we can create a content and a brand strategy that helps actually get those people engaged and get visibility amongst them. And then we can then build those stepping stones with the right people to drive towards their ideal outcome.
Okay. So let's just say we get practical and say that there's a founder of a company that would like to expand their reach and they work in tech, and they've come up with this brand new software that can help companies streamline their sales processes. So imagine like a better version of Salesforce as an example. Okay. If there's a founder that's created something like that now, what would you suggest to someone like that they should be focusing on to help get more traction in the marketplace?
Sure. I mean, like a lot of things, a few of the key ones are really working out what differentiates them and making sure that that's clear. Like the way that we view it is your profile is your conversion tool. And they need to make sure that their clear differentiation, that offer is communicated in a way which their target buyer is going to really resonate with, that they've got real quality visual identity, where they're going to leave a great first and lasting impression with that target buyer. Really kind of laser in on them, on their profile, and then continue that also through to the content as well. But like what a lot of people do is, they don't make it clear what they do, how they're different, why their target should be interested. They then create content that is generic. They use AI. It doesn't interest their target buyer at all. And so their brand presence is just moving them away from their goals, not closer. And this is what we see over and over, and it's what we come in and solve. And so you have to get all of those things right. Once you've got a great profile, you've got great content, you're building authority and trust in the marketplace, you're starting to move along those stepping stones to the outcome. You then can start turning things up through conversation starting. So how do you find what we call a right hook? How do you right hook into their inbox and say something which is going to grab their attention, is super strong, and is going to get a conversation started with that target buyer? And then you want to kind of find ways to scale. Once you've got that system working, the content, the profile, the DMs, you can then look to scale that up. How can you post more? How can you reach more eyes? How can you send more DMs? How can you increase the conversion rate of your connection acceptance rate, of the response rate, of all of those things? And you just take that all the way through the funnel.
Is there a formula to get a right hook?
There is. I mean, it depends on the kind of person you're trying to reach. So a 5 versus a 6 versus a 7-figure decision maker is going to want a very different thing. Some people need 10 messages before they're going to move to a sales call. Some people only need 2. Some prospects are busier than other prospects. It depends if your solution solves a number one priority for their business, or whether it's actually a little bit more of a secondary or third kind of order effect in their business. So it really depends on all of these factors, but we combine all of that. We combine our target ICP, kind of customer profile knowledge, and then we A/B test and experiment with a bunch of right hooks. And you'll get one, you'll get a few to stick, and then you can just scale it up.
How important is that testing phase of trying different right hooks? Is there just one that works every single time, or is there nothing that works every single time, and you're constantly having to evolve the way you reach out to people?
I mean, for each of our clients, they've got completely different right hooks. For me personally, we're always changing them. So yeah, it's one of those things that like, it can run its course, like ideally you want to have an opinion or you want to tap into like a big moment happening in the industry. And so again, you want to update that frequently if you've got a right hook based on something more current, like that. But yeah, we're also talking about right hooks that are punchy and not salesy. Like a lot of people go in with the right hook. Hey, I'm Matt and I run a great sales software business that can help you, increase your conversion rate by 33%, right? We don't do anything like that. It's super conversational. It's as if it's been typed by someone by hand. And that's what we find works. It should feel literally like a right hook. Like in my opinion, that's more of like a jab, as it were, like those messages. And we're trying to like get the right hook in.
So what would that right hook message sound like instead of the example that you just gave that is super salesy?
For sure. So with one of our clients, we're trying to sign them in video at the minute, and a bunch of other kind of, almost $1 trillion companies from Cisco and Microsoft and people like that. And so we've reached out to VPs at a lot of those companies. And so we've reached out to the VPs. We're then waiting 2 weeks before we send our message. And our message is really simple. Like, hey, name, guessing you've seen some of my posts recently, because we believe that if we connect with them, they'll start seeing some of their posts. And over the course of 2 weeks, 1 or 2 of their posts will have popped up on their feed. Not salesy at all, but it starts a conversation. Those people are in charge of kind of, 20, 30, 40, 50 million pound budgets. Mm-hmm. And so, anything slightly salesy is going to turn them off. And so, yeah, we just want to have a normal conversation with them. And so the right hook is not like, how do we get the sale as quick as possible? It's how do we get into their inbox and cut through the noise of all of the other sales messages that everybody else is sending. And we do that through not creating the world's best sales message, but actually making it unsalesy.
I love that. That is a long process. Like you said, you maybe send one message and then you'll wait 2 weeks before you send another message. And that second message is, again, not trying to ask for anything. It's still trying to build that connection. For someone listening to this right now who might be feeling a little bit impatient, who might be thinking, I need to get that deal done ASAP, or I need to make that business happen yesterday, what's your advice to that person?
I mean, brand building is a slow exercise. And it's the reason why at the top, there are so few people with good brands, because so few are willing to put in the reps, the years, all of the payment of building a whole team around you. And I think that's why brand is so valuable, because if it was so easy to get and you could just build brand overnight, it wouldn't have any value. But the reason why people value brand and the reason why you can become the go-to in your market is because of the time it takes to get there. And so, the quick fixes is fine on DMs, but ultimately building a brand is a slow process, and you kind of have to see it. You have to kind of see it like that as well. And so sure, you can send cold. It's why we believe that brand has the impact it has, and why it leads to more sales, higher conversion rates, easier closes, more premium prices, all of those amazing things that every business wants, is because that everybody else is just spamming their inbox, trying to just find any way to get in, whereas we build brand and then send the message. And so if you focus too much on sending loads of messages and not building the brand part, then you just don't cut through, you don't stand out. And you'll find that a right hook, like what we say, our first message cuts through the noise because of all of the content and the body of work that we've created alongside that message. The message doesn't have to sell because the content and the profile sells for them. It becomes a no-brainer not to work with them. Whereas if you've just got a message in isolation, of course you need to be more salesy, because something like that, if you've got no posts on your page and a profile picture that's 10 years old, it's not gonna do anything. Right.
That is very, very true. And I mean, I completely agree with the need to build brand slowly over a long period of time. Like I started the podcast a few years ago, and I wasn't taking it as seriously. I was doing it for the purpose of I liked the conversations, and it gave me the opportunity to learn from other people, and I loved it. And then about a year ago now, or just under a year ago, decided to invest in a studio space, the one that we're sitting in right now. And I was like, okay, let me see what happens if I decide to take this a little bit more seriously. Let me see what opportunities present themselves. And it has been profound that without trying to sell anything, without trying to ask people for anything, without trying to push myself into an opportunity, opportunities have come my way left, right, and center because people have seen me, they've resonated with me, they've resonated with my voice, they understand what I'm about, they understand my experience, and I've been given opportunities to work with companies that I would never have even considered an option, all through a podcast that has nothing to do with the companies that I'm actually working with. And it is crazy to see how those things align. But I guess it's kind of like those signs where, people will say certain things and then you just got to be paying attention to what they're saying. So that's been a super interesting. I completely agree with what your philosophy is around that.
Yeah. And like, it's, if you were coming on with the intention of trying to, plug a company or win deals in the same way, like it would detract a little bit away from it. And it's because of the fact that it's you, and you're adding value and you're not so worried about like the metrics. You kind of trust that those will be there and the opportunities will be there. I think that's what makes it more impactful and creates more outcome for you. And I think that that's where people go onto socials with the wrong intention. They go, how can we just plug our product in as many places as possible? They do it for 2 weeks. They go, we've got no engagement. No one's liking this stuff. We've not got any DMs come through. It doesn't work. It's like, it's just the wrong content. They're turning off their ICP instead of turning them on. Right. And it's, it requires that more strategic, that more value additive approach. And that's what makes it impactful.
What are some of the brands that you would look at today and say those are incredibly successful brands and what they've tried to achieve in their career and in their history to be recognizable as brands and companies that you foresee that would stay around for a very long time?
Sure. I mean, like when I say brand a lot, like for me, it's like personal brand. And like, I think that everybody's always differentiated between personal brand and company brand. And for me, it's just brand, because actually a lot of the same principles apply. And just like a brand is there to, allow you to increase your prices, to create more demand, to create people wanting your product. Like we view the same thing with people. Usually they just have a company attached to them, right? That they want to kind of use as a vehicle to gain traction through. I love Alex Hormozy. I think he's great. I think he's just been so like ruthless around like that core element of his brand. You know how I was saying everybody gets distracted and they start looking at what everyone else is doing. And Hormozy's like, I don't care about anyone else. I'm doing this. This feels right. And I think that he's just been relentless around staying true to that core, that mission that he started out with. So for me, Hormozy's content is the highest value per minute. It's the most differentiated on the market. I think he's got really clear like brand purpose. Like, what you're going to get from him. I think he's just all round like a really great class of brand to work, to kind of look at, especially from an entrepreneur's point of view. Just trying to think of others. I think there's a lot of people that have great brands that we've never ever heard of, that might have 2,000 followers and might be trying to only reach 100 people. Let's say they've got 100 ICPs, right? It's 100 target personas, and they're so well known around those 100 people. Their content is so valuable to those 100 people. Sure, it's not valuable to me or you. Mm-hmm. It's not valuable to anyone on the street, but they've managed to create content and a brand that their core target persona love and helps them move through their career and drive really great outcomes for them. Like I think there's a load of people like that people like, look at the Instagram count and that's what they decide what a good brand is or not. Whereas for me, it's like, does it help you move towards their end outcome? I think that you can do that with a really small brand. You can do that with 1,000 followers.
I love that. I think that's a testament for those people that have created their small niche of followers that they've got real engagement with, because you don't need 2 million people to be looking at your stuff if you can have an impact with 200 people, and that can create an amazing sustainable business for a lot of people that could be listening to this. Going back to the time that you spent with the Diary of a CEO team, the question that I have for you around that and working so closely with Steven Bartlett, what did you take away from that experience that you had that's impacted your ability to run your agency now, from working with someone who exited an agency?
Sure. For me, like the big lesson was the attention to detail and the 1%. And it's something that's slowly become kind of morphed into me. It's hard for me to sometimes, but like the way that I see my job as a CEO now is like my quality bar is here, and my role is to keep the quality bar here. And you'll find in general in business and in life that people will try and bring the quality bar down because it's the easier choice. And my job is to keep the quality bar where it should be and keep it at my high standards. And like that's what I saw with him, where like, he would just have really high standards. He'd want to, really attention to detail, care about the 1% gains. And so that's kind of being imparted on me. And now I reflect as like me as a CEO, and I go, okay, like, how do I make sure that the team also understand and see that quality bar? And I think it actually helps to like hold my hand up here and just go like, this is the quality bar. Everyone is going to try and bring this down. And at times you're going to want to bring it down as well. If you've worked a 12-hour day and something comes through at, 9 p.m. at night, what do you do? And you're going to want to, just go, it's okay. But you have to keep the bar here, and you can't let anything bring it down. And so that's kind of a principle that I see.
So on that example, when you want the bar to be this high and you've had a 12-hour day, you've had a 15-hour day, you're trying to work to client deadlines, you're trying to get everything done, and the temptation is there to drop that bar. You want to let something slide, or you don't want to double check something that you've worked on, etc. How do you hold yourself accountable to such a high standard to make sure that that doesn't drop, not just for yourself, but for the rest of the team as well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, it's easy to hold it high. It's just something that's quite ingrained in me now. Also, I am in general reviewing more stuff, and so it's not always down for me to fix, as it were. So it's a little bit easier as a reviewer or a manager or a leader to hold the bar high, right? And I think that's why, stepping into a CEO role, like that is part of what, you have to do as a CEO. You have to realize that you're not out doing the work so much. You are, kind of holding the bar high. And yeah, in terms of the team, build a team of A players, and just show them that the details matter. And there are ways where you can show them the details matter. And eventually they just go, oh, okay, like Matt's not going to accept this. I better do it till he does. And eventually you just build that as a mentality where, and then they don't go, oh, Matt's not going to accept this. They then start to have it themselves. I'm not going to accept this mistake. And so, yeah, you're just able to translate it, but it takes time. I don't have the kind of perfect answer that people can write down, but all I know is like the more I've held that bar high, the better the business has grown, the happier clients are, the more success I've seen personally. And so I'm not incentivized to bring it down. Every time I hold the bar high, things go well. And so I just want to keep that bar high. And so I can't imagine there being many things where that bar would lower.
In your opinion, what makes a good leader?
I think someone that gets their hands dirty. Like, you'll always see me in the details, and like I care about the details, and I show that I care about the details, and I'm in the details too. I think that a lot of people will just go, I don't want to touch any of this. I want to sit in the high seat. Whereas for me, it's all about being in the details, all of that side of things.
Just getting into the trenches.
Yeah. I mean, what about yourself?
What makes a good leader? I think it's someone who recognizes that being a leader doesn't mean you're above anyone. So for me, I think a good leader is someone who knows that they're leader by title, fine, but that's it. Everything else is equal. And if someone needs your help, like you said, you're going to get your hands dirty, you're going to get involved, because that's what a leader does. A leader leads by example. And I think that's always important, because the minute you detach yourself from everything and you go, that's not my thing and I'm not going to do that, and you almost have this, in my opinion, it almost becomes like a level of entitlement that comes with the title, which can be a slippery slope. You almost lose touch with what your team's doing. And if you lose touch with what your team's doing, you lose touch with your company. If you lose touch with your company, then why did you start in the first place?
For sure. And it's like, if you don't care about the details, no one else is. And so you have to care. You have to have your high quality standards. Otherwise, you can't expect others to have those same high quality standards. And so, yeah, it all kind of trickles down as a reflection of how you act and what you care about.
Definitely. On the flip side, how do you find A players?
So for me, I'm quite lucky where my brand, I attract a lot of my team through my brand. And so, we can put out a piece of content saying, hey, we've got this opening. Are you interested? And we get a bunch of people that want to come and work for us. And so I find that really rewarding, where they see my values, they see my stories, they see the content I put out, and they go, okay, this is where I want to work. And so, you're able to attract just like really great people. And they also want to work for you. You don't have, they often accept lower rates as well.
Interesting. How do you balance that between especially for A players, because generally A players will want a higher level of salary or higher level of income or options to opportunity to earn more. How does that balance between the A players that you find and maybe giving them slightly less than what market rate would be?
Sure. The way that I see A players is there's certain traits and things within them. Like for me, they're super responsive. They care about the details. They just love it. Like they wanna kind of spend all their time doing it. And so like often those A players, they might not have all of the traditional experience. And so for me, like they don't always correlate that like level of experience and therefore like salary expectation with the kind of traits that they have. But for me, it's just like the learning opportunity. Like you want to see them hungry for the learning opportunity. Like we have great clients that they get to work with, and we kind of help fast track their career through our clients, as it were. And so, yes, it's one of those things where like when you have a brand, like for me, everything else in life gets easier. Just like we were saying earlier, like, people with these great brands, even if they're small, they can transition through life super easily. They can find great talent to work with. They can find great projects, and everything's just super streamlined and easy. And it just comes down to like one of the many benefits, just like hiring and everything like that is just so much easier with a great brand.
Love that. So I've done a little deep dive into your socials and your content, and I do this with all of my guests. So don't worry. Nothing too dodgy going on. But I found 3 things that I really, really liked from what you'd said and what you'd shared. Sure. And I wanted to get your in-person take on those things. Okay.
Sure.
The first one is, I saw you share this. Have a simple and compelling shareable idea built into your value proposition. iPhone had a computer in your pocket. How essential is it for a brand to have a phrase, or a company to have a phrase or a sentence like that? And should every company have something like that? So
if you're a B2C type product, you're selling into the mass market, and you're tiny now, you've raised money or whatever, and now you want to blow up. For me, yes, it's vital, because, the way that things work on socials is it's very much like, you share it with your friends and things like that. But there's a bigger component to that in real life where, things get shared around. And if people don't know how to share what you have, what you offer, or why it's interesting or why it's different, then people just won't share it. And so, something super simple, really compelling, but you'd go to somebody in the back of a car and kind of go, oh, have you seen X, Y, and Z? And people will realize that they'll do this all the time. Like, did you see that book about, or that movie, like Saltburn had it, for example. Saltburn was an incredibly shareable movie. The movie itself you know, I don't know, everyone's got their own views, but like was nothing particularly interesting. But what made it interesting was that there was a couple of moments in that scene that people really wanted to discuss and hear their friend's point of view. And so people had to watch the movie to be able to enter the conversation. And people only entered the conversation because it was being talked about so much, because there were so many, there was such a shareable component to that movie. And you'll see this with songs and movies and brands and products and TikTok videos that really catch on. It's like, you know, there's something where you want to kind of run to your friend and tell them about it.
I love that. And it's a great way to think about how you plan that content as well. It's once you've got that plan in place, you can ask yourself that question: would someone want to run to their friend or family member to tell them about that piece of content? I absolutely love that. Second one, which we've touched on a couple of times now, but follow account is slightly outdated as a concept. People care more about who is credible and trusted in the marketplace. How would you help someone shift their focus from this idea of needing hundreds of thousands of followers to just placing their focus on becoming credible and respected in the marketplace?
Sure. I mean, I think every single person has been on somebody with 100K followers. They've looked at their posts and they've gone, this is awful. I've not learned anything. This is boring. You know, whether it's trying to be entertaining or whether it's like, you know, whatever. And I think that everybody's been on someone with like 1K followers. They've gone, oh, wow, this was super interesting. Like, this really appeals to me right now. Like, you know, I'm kind of intrigued here. And so people think that the follower count gives them the authority, but it's not. It's the quality of your content. And eventually, when you play the game long enough, you end up with the follower counts. And so, yeah, for me, like, you know, everyone's experienced it, right? Everyone has landed on a page and they've gone, I'm not coming back to this. And people have landed on, like, some of my favorite TikTokers right now. One of them is 8K followers. You know, just complete, like, you know, it's like random guy in North London, and the other's a girl in Cardiff or South Wales or something like that. And like both of them just completely random, like couldn't care less about the follower count, but I've engaged with a few of their things and I'm like, I really like them now.
Interesting.
And so I think that that's the world we're moving towards, where it's just all about like how good your stuff is. And it's not about how long you've been doing it, you know, or any of the more traditional measures.
It is interesting you say that, because it almost coincides with something that Gary Vee talks about a lot, which is kind of like the era of micro influencers, which is these influencers that don't have these numbers of like mega influencers, whether it's 6 figures, 7 figures upwards, but it's the influencers that have 5K followers or 15K followers, but you can tell that they've got real followers because the engagement is so high. And that makes a huge difference for brands potentially wanting to work with them and how they can earn an income as well.
Yeah, I mean, these two people, their videos are not crazy. They're super small, and like, you know, in lots of ways, I'm probably really not their ideal, or like, you know, they probably wouldn't put me on as like, oh, we really want to reach someone like me, you know. But like, I don't know, I've just stumbled across them, and I'm quite hooked now, and yeah. It's a big change for me as well, because I traditionally have watched a lot of like, you know, the Hormozy stuff, and sure, I still like Hormozy obviously, but you know, I'm really enjoying these smaller creators, and I think that a lot of it's just down to the quality of content.
I love that.
And you know, these days there are people with hundreds of thousands of followers that are reciting the same message in the same way that people have done for the last few years, you know, and it's just dull, not interesting, generic. And I think it, you know, doesn't add value to anyone's life. So,
okay. This one is the one that I love the most that you posted about. Okay. You need to work for free. You need to do small gigs. You need to do boring work. You need to put up with bad clients, and you need to charge less than what you deserve. My business grew slower at the start because we held our prices too high. The best way to grow? Charge less, over deliver. That is such a profound thing to read, because what you hear in the marketplace, what you hear from gurus is charge what you're worth, charge higher, raise your prices. Your experience was very different. someone listening to this that is, whether they've got a service-based business or a product-based business where they think the price needs to be a certain level, what would you say?
It's a tough one. Like, I believe at the start, like all of those things apply. You know, I signed my first retainer deal on 2,000 a month, and like that's a great size to start off with. But you know, I feel like I could have learned faster and I could have moved quicker, and we'd be in a faster growth period now if I had have signed for less and taken a bit of a hit, you know, earlier on, as it were. So like all of that stands, but as you do build experience and you build that target profile and you start to get results and you start to prove your ROI, I think you can charge way more. Usually people think it's their prices why people don't buy, and it's not. It's their reliability on you getting them the end outcome that they want. And so they're looking at it and they're going, yeah, like for me, it's not price, but it's like, am I going to get the end result that I want? And that's what you have to kind of spend your time proving. And usually in terms of price, like sure, you can charge whatever price you want, providing you're speaking to the right person. Like the right person will be able to pay the price, but it's just trying to get access to the right person, you know, who can pay the big money basically. And that's the hard thing. And that's why it requires brand and trust and authority and the right hook to be able to open those conversations with the people that do have the bigger budgets, and therefore you can charge more money to. And so I think it's like a story with two tales. It's like the first is at the start, charge way less, move quicker, learn more, build results. But two, like you can charge more than you think at a certain point. But you have to, you know, it's not that you need to lower your prices. It's just you need to get access to the right people. People are like, oh, my prices are too high. My prices are too high. And it's like, yeah, your prices are too high to who you're targeting right now. But if you target a level up, your prices are fine. Your prices might even be cheap.
But you might have to go through that first threshold where you have to drop your price to get the experience and maybe even like the testimonials and the reviews.
Yeah, to open up those bigger doors later on. And, you know, have more time for your brand to compound and build as well, for your content to get, you know, to improve and for you to help, you know, because that obviously helps open those doors. So yeah, like there are times where I've pitched and people think it's cheap, you know, and I've pitched, you know, that same price and, you know, to somebody like a year ago, and, you know, they'd have laughed me out of the room. So it's not the price really, it's who you're speaking to and the reliability that they're going to get the end outcome that they want.
Amazing. Matt, this has been an amazing conversation. I've got my final 4 questions to finish on.
Cool.
First one, what is the one skill that you think is essential for someone to learn to be successful in today's world?
I think it's getting clear what you want. I think it's really hard to get clear on what you want. I think it's so easy to get kind of cluttered up and your mind to be taken away from what you want. So I think you have to know what you want in order to get it.
How can someone get clearer?
Oh, it's just really boring stuff like go for walks, don't drink alcohol, and have time where you can kind of let your brain kind of run a bit more free, push yourself into some difficult new experiences which kind of challenge your way of thinking. Speak to people, have lots of conversations, like nothing kind of groundbreaking, but like it's the hard thing. Like, you know, there's no point working towards, otherwise you're just going to spend all this time working towards something and you don't actually want, that path.
It's a lot of wasted time. This podcast is called The Mindful Creator. What does being mindful mean to you and how do you implement it?
So for me, I tend to move less away now from meditation and all of the like traditional kind of clear your head type stuff and more towards a lot more active stuff. So visualization, really kind of picturing that future self, you know, really trying to like bring those visualizations to life. So I don't know, whenever I think of mindful, I think of like most people follow like traditional mindfulness and traditional like meditation. And for me, I tend to move towards a much more active process now.
Interesting. Have you visualized a lot of the clients that you've been wanting to work with, almost like a manifestation exercise?
Yeah, I think a lot of it tends to go into your subconscious, but there are certain things that I have kind of like brought into fruition, I feel. Um,
What's the biggest thing you've brought into fruition?
I mean, even back when I was starting content, right? It was like I just believed it would turn into something, and so it can the outcome can sometimes be unknown. Like I don't think you have to visualize in 5 years' time you want to live in this particular house on this particular road. It can be this more general sense of like, I'm going to live in this like, whatever it is. So sometimes just having that intention and just emitting that intention can do a lot of the work.
Almost like just having the belief that it will work out how you want it to.
Yeah, I think having that hope, and I think that these days it's hard. It's hard, people are having tough times, and I think it's hard to develop that belief and that hope. And so if you can do it, then it makes a huge difference. It makes the whole ride a lot easier.
Is there a specific book or movie that you've read or watched that's had a significant impact on your life?
Yeah, I mean, probably my first book, Mark Manson's The Subtle Art book, just because that got me into reading, and the reading led to me writing, the writing led to me put my own thoughts online, the writing online led to everything else. It also really spoke to me, and I don't know, really kind of opened my mind up. So I guess the first book in general always stays with you, but like for me, killer book.
Love that. That's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
Love that book.
Yeah.
Final question for you. What's the one positive message that you'd love to share with everyone listening to this episode today?
Nice. That's a nice ending. I think it would be around like energy, and that like energy is the core resource that we have, and it's within us. We just have to tap into it. And that if you can shift your energy, then everything in your life can change from a simple energy shift.
What's the most practical way to shift your energy?
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff you can do. Just depends how advanced you want to go. Some Wim Hof breathing's good. Some visualization stuff's good. Some kind of trance type stuff's quite good. I like a lot of Joe Dispenza, so I'd listen to a few kind of things that he does and go from there.
Love it. Matt Swain, thank you so much for taking the time.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.